let's face it.
Our world is a hot mess.
So we're setting out in a rocket ship
to explore queerer pastures. I'm Chris Renfro.
And I'm Finn Argus.
And every week on our show, one of us with Finn and Chris, we're going on a new
fully sound designed adventure. Part interview, part improv,
and always full of plot twists.
Join the Best Friend Force every Tuesday from Good Get Productions.
Wherever you go, there's one of us.
Now more than ever, Lowe's knows you don't just want a low price, you want the lowest price. And with our lowest price guarantee, you can count on us for competitive prices on all your home improvement projects. If you find a qualifying lower price somewhere else on the same item, we'll match it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Price match applies to same item, current price at qualifying retailers. Exclusions and terms apply. Learn how we'll match price at lowes.com/lowest price guarantee.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, he set a high bar for low behavior with a television show known for its crass sensationalism. But he was often of two minds about what he did for a living and who he wanted to be. We'll talk about the Audible original podcast, Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer from Leon Neyfakh. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, host of These Are Their Stories podcast, and the only man I know who can easily open a Talenti container. My husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
So I don't know if anyone else has been having this. If anyone else
It's trauma for me.
Is Talenti the brand name?
It is the brand name of the gelato that I buy and that I love, and the containers are fucking impossible to open.
It's like these small, round containers.
With a brown top.
Maybe it looks like a smaller version of like a peanut butter jar. For like the past 2 weeks or a couple of months actually, they have been like super hard to open up.
Oh,
like they just like would not open. Now Rebecca one time tried to open one up, really wanted the Talenti that night, and it wouldn't open, and she burst into tears.
Huge tears.
It
was my first clue that maybe I needed to do hormone replacement.
Oh, goodness.
I was so despondent and sad. Kevin brought the Talenti container downstairs and used like a wrench and like a vice grip to open it up.
Yeah, that didn't work, so I beat it senseless.
Oh, my God.
And finally opened it up, but I figured out the way to do it. You know, like if you have like a glass bottle and that the top there, like you're trying to like break the seal, so you bang on it or you run in hot water. I run hot water around the lip, not to loosen the grip, but to soften the gelato. So now it's spongy, so now I can open it up. So I'm a genius.
You are a genius.
Yeah.
And thank you, Kevin. And by the way, also, I cried when he did get it open because I was so emotionally moved that he would go through that for me. Another clue that I maybe needed to start hormone replacement therapy. Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of the Piper Green series of cozy mysteries, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, speaking of hormone therapy, no, I'm just kidding. I'm also in that age bracket. Yay.
I'll say that estrogen works. It fucking works.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, our resident Downing Thomas, author of a city trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, Strange Arrivals, More Like Ancient Phalians, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin?
Yes.
This is Thursday's program.
It is.
What's coming up on Monday's show?
On Monday, we're going to talk about the podcast Arsonist Next Door.
What's that about?
It's about an arsonist who lives next door.
Literally?
I don't know. I haven't listened to it yet. Why would you ask me that? I barely got through this one just because I'm so busy.
I think sometimes I assume that you know what something is about that we're going to be reviewing. And if that's a wrong assumption, I will take that question off the table. No, I'm not. I'm always going to ask you.
Sometimes I just look at what's on the charts.
Yes.
But no, this one comes from the folks over at Novel who've done things like The Girlfriends and some other stuff that we did like. To put it that way.
Not The Girlfriends?
Not The Girlfriend. We didn't like The Girlfriend.
People love that show.
Yeah, no. But they said they actually reached out ahead of time, asked if we would do it. They said that they thought our stuff was thoughtful, even if we disagreed with them. And so I said, sure, let us know when you're getting close to the end. So the whole series is out, and we're going to be talking about it.
All right. One quick note, Kevin.
Yeah.
I have good news. Our laundry loo / laundry room is almost done.
Yeah, so we don't have to worry about anybody banging hammers next to the studio.
That's right. So no more noise, everyone. And now we can just go on and tape a show peacefully. So Kevin, should we go ahead and talk about the thing that we're talking about this week?
Yes.
All right. Leading off.
It was an international phenomenon that, to many, represented nothing less than the decline of Western civilization. It was the first talk show in over a decade to beat Oprah in the ratings. And its reputation as one of the trashiest, ugliest, most depraved shows in the history of TV was uncontested.
Tell us about this bizarre relationship you have.
Well, I'm pregnant by my brother.
Jerry Springer and his titular TV show became synonymous with trash entertainment, serving up daily episodes of sensational confrontations and bad behavior. But the host began his public life as a progressive local politician whose career was nearly derailed by a sex scandal.
I think the image of Jerry paying the prostitute with a check was so ludicrous as to cause people to think that maybe it was forgivable, because it was a really stupid mistake on several levels.
After a stint as a Cincinnati anchorman, Springer became one among a crowded field of new daytime talk show hosts. His program rose to the top with its uniquely crude style of on-camera confrontations. Though it made him famous, Springer seemed indifferent to the show that bore his name, wishing to distance himself from its outlandish legacy and achieve something more positive.
What he said to me was, "My wife and my daughter are not proud of what I do for a living. And before I die, I would like to make them proud."
From Prologue projects and Audible originals comes Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer. Host Leon Neyfakh recounts Springer's unlikely journey from immigrant to politician to ringmaster in television's trashiest show. It takes a nuanced look at the man and whether his program created or merely reflected a corroding culture of misbehavior, spectacle, and cruelty. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So Kevin, this is not the first Jerry Springer project that you and I have consumed, right?
Yeah, no, Netflix recently did a series about Jerry Springer. It was called like Too Hot to Handle or whatever it was. It focused really more on the wildest moments of the show, including the guy who married the horse. It was told a lot through the view of several of the producers. And now when it kind of showed Jerry Springer's a little more laissez-faire about what went on and really kind of pointed the finger at Richard Dominic, the executive producer, sort of driving everything with the show and the tone and all of that. So the show, was a cultural phenomenon and a low point, and that all kind of falls onto him. And what they talk about Jerry Springer himself as the man is a little bit in the beginning. There's a little bit of sort of a eulogy for him at the end. But this podcast, I don't want to say goes in a different direction, but it really focuses on Jerry Springer, and we find a very surprisingly complex person here, and it also gives us a little more to think about what did he actually think about his own show? Was there a reason why he was so hands-off? Was it because he was disengaged on purpose? Did he not have the ability to insert himself and put his own stamp on his show? Or did he kind of come to the conclusion through trial and error that he can't be Phil Donahue? No one's going to watch that. And so now he's living in a golden cage.
I have a theory about that I will share later, but I want to get some more foundational questions in first.
Okay,
I'll allow it. As Bob Alessi would say. So, Toby, Jerry Springer was a star. Like some people just are, right? Do you agree with me that he had just a thing that some other people do not have?
Yeah, I mean, the it factor. He came from New York City to Cincinnati and sort of against common wisdom or all odds or however you want to put it, ended up winning a seat on the city council, then ended up becoming mayor, which apparently is when you get the most votes for city council, that makes you the mayor. So it's not really quite like being the mayor of New York City or whatever. But I mean, just his accent definitely sounds New York. He does not sound like he's from Cincinnati.
Unless he's giving a political speech. And who does he sound like?
Right, RFK Jr.
Yeah, not Junior, Senior. Yeah.
Didn't he work on the Bobby Kennedy campaign too?
Yeah, that's where he kind of got it.
Yeah.
I run because it has become increasingly evident that unless some new alternative, some new initiative, some new approach is injected into the political life of our community, we are destined to lose here at home the very prize we seek to defend abroad, the politics of participation.
But then he becomes a news anchor, and there's that story about, I can't remember exactly what the thing was, but he's out amongst the people and people start chanting his name, which is like not normal for a local news anchor to be that popular. And then even after his show comes out and, is highly controversial, like low point in culture, he's still like so charming and so charismatic that he can go to like Democratic National Convention and talk to people who are like sort of hardened politicians who are just sort of, realpolitik, like we just got to get people elected, and totally charm them and have them be like, well, when I thought about it at first, I was like, no way, this guy's going to destroy our party. But then actually after I met him and talked to him a little bit, I was like, maybe this could work. So, I feel like Bill Clinton was probably the same way. I think a lot of like really successful politicians have that kind of charm that puts people, in the palm of their hand. It seemed like there are two things that kind of kept him from that trajectory. One is paying for sex work with a personal check.
Which did not stop his trajectory at all, actually.
Well, it did and it didn't, right?
He became more successful as a politician after it happened, and he became more successful as a talk show host after, and he became an anchor after it happened.
Right. It seemed to me from the thing that it was at least a factor in his retreat from politics. So it was that, and then becoming part of a show that sort of morphed from sort of more traditional talk show into this freaking three-ring circus, which it seems like he had, as we talked about a little bit earlier. Was he on board with it? How much influence did he have? Or was he just like literally showing up and being like, what is it today? I can kind of deal with any situation and then I'll go back to my life. So, yeah, he clearly could have done a lot of different things. And then whether by choice or not, he ended up doing this completely ridiculous thing with his life.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I think that good broadcasters do have something in common. And by people who are good at their jobs, like as broadcasters. So whether you like them or hate them, we talked about this when we talked about the Alex Jones documentary, right? Alex Jones is good at his job, which is why he's successful and resonates with lots of people. Mm-hmm. Howard Stern, incredibly good at his job, very successful, resonates with lots of people. Oprah Winfrey, very good at her job, resonates with a lot of people. I can go on and on and on. Joe Rogan is another great example of that. The woman who hosts Call Her Daddy, great example of that. Mm-hmm. Jerry Springer does the thing that all of those people do. I think it's what they have in common, and it's something that I've learned a lot from as an aspiring broadcaster myself, is they embody the character that's like the avatar for the audience's aspirations. So Jerry Springer is able to successfully do this show that becomes increasingly bananas because he has fully embodied this sort of like quasi-disinterested, disappointed dad persona, where he's like, hey, come on now. But let me ask you this next really provocative question. And it's like, he just lives it. I don't think the show would be as good if he weren't a little bit disinterested in what's going on in the show. I really don't. I think that's actually the magic of the show. Similarly to how the magic of the Howard Stern show for me has always been Robin Quivers, who is the character who's like the disappointed mom, kind of disinterested about all the gross stuff going on, but has something to say about it. She's sort of the avatar for the audience. He's just really talented. The fact that he could be a news anchor and convince people he was reading the news as a journalist after being a politician is a great example of that. What do you think about the surprising complexity that we learn about Jerry Springer, Laura? He's not just a guy who got a lucky break.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things is like you hear Jerry Springer and you immediately, like how many times you say, oh, it's like a Jerry Springer episode. Like I say it all the time in my work. Oh, this one's like a Jerry Springer episode. It's like the brand, and that's what you immediately think of. But when you hear about his parents who had escaped Nazi-occupied Poland and gone to England, and then how they come to the U.S., and his sister who's talking about, like, kind of piggybacking what you were saying, was talking about how even when he was like 5 years old, he was up on his little podium giving speeches, and that was just always his personality, but that he went to law school and he worked on Robert Kennedy's presidential campaign and all the things that he did before going into the Jerry Springer show, which is what, when you hear his name, you immediately flash to. But then when you hear about what he did when he was mayor, I loved it. I was like, I would love to have been there. I would love to have been a reporter when he was mayor, when he was like, the buses are having problems, so he hijacks a bus and takes it for a joyride. And He sings a song to protest closing a terminal. I loved when he spent a night in the jail to kind of expose the conditions there, and wrestling a bear for charity. I mean,
right.
All these things. It's really fascinating.
I'm so jealous of all the local press who got to cover him when he was a politician.
I
there.
know.
So, Kevin, can you address the fallout or lack thereof of the sex scandal?
Thank you for the blowjob. Will you take a personal check? It's so ridiculous that the sex scandal is so funny that this constituents almost found it charming.
Ironically, the fact that Springer had used a personal check in his transaction with the sex worker turned out to help him. It made the story absurd. And in some people's minds, at least, it made his behavior look less scandalous and more bumbling and kind of funny.
Who among us hasn't made a mistake like that?
Yeah, that was
He's
so
like
bad.
my son.
He lacks so much guile that he actually wrote a check for this as opposed to setting up a whole shell corporation. Yeah, I mean, these are the days before sex scandals were big. So, yeah, it is interesting. And it did derail for a time his political ambitions. And like when he came back, he had to continue to shake off that kind of baggage. You know, it's one of the reasons why he didn't do so well running for governor in the early 80s. And that's how he wound up as a local anchorman. But it's funny because as a politician, right, in addition to having the Bobby Kennedy lilt, he was a champion for the middle class and the undereducated and the disadvantaged in his community. And yet his television show years later mostly exploited those kinds of people as guests and audience members. And, you know, it does sort of go to this idea that he wasn't all that he seemed. And it does make you wonder more about how he really felt about those things because he gave hints, but it seems like very few people know.
I mean, he was a populist, right? At one point, they say that he would have been Ohio's Bernie Sanders, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about that transition, Toby, from being a Bernie Sanders, standing up for the poor, people of color, and so forth, and then hosting a show that sort of shows those people in the worst possible frame and eggs them on by not letting them on the show unless they're willing to sign a contract where they will have that behavior?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this whole thing is just sort of a tragic arc in a lot of ways. It feels to me that like he always had these sort of liberal ideals, but that at a point when, and I guess it was in pursuit of Oprah, where it's kind of like, this is the direction we're going and it's going to get you super popular, that he didn't put the brakes on. And at the end, like the final act where he's trying to figure out if he wants to run for governor of Ohio, it all seems to be like, is there going to be redemption for me having gone through all this? And, you know, ultimately he decides not to pursue it. In the end, to me, this seemed like kind of a sad story of a person who had strong idealistic bent and basically sold it out to become about as cynical a media personality as you can be, with like a marginal amount of plausible deniability on his part. But, you know, for years and years and years, he was the ringmaster and all this stuff. So it's hard to feel like too sad for a guy who made as much money as he did and had total control over his choices and things like that. But it did feel to me as though there may have been a little bit of mission creep as things went along, where it was like, well, I was like a politician, then I was sort of a straight local news guy. Then I tried to have like kind of a straight talk show. And then Richard Dominic comes along and suddenly we're like these televised kind of National Enquirer performances. And it just seems like there was a point at which he probably should have jumped off, but I don't think he identified it at the time. And then there was a point, it's like, am I really going to leave this? Like, I'm making all this money. I got a private plane. I'm like flying back and forth so I can, you know, meet all my responsibilities. And then at the end, like as he's nearing the end of his run, I assume he had regrets. He was doing Air America for free and saying, that's the real me. Like what you're seeing on the show is a persona. This is the real me. Like he's trying to make the case that the show does not define him, when for 98% of the people in the country, it absolutely does.
Well, our shows define us on Patreon. Find out who we really are.
Is this the business
section? At
patreon.com/
partnersincrimemedia. Look, we will not accept a personal check.
No?
No, you have to use a card of some kind, I believe,
like a
in order
debit
to sign
card
up. It's
or
not our
something.
thing. It's Patreon. They set it up. And once you subscribe, we give you all sorts of exclusive content. If you join us at the leading off level, you'll get podcasts such as the Crime Writers on After Show, Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Married with Podcast, and Rebecca Lavoie's ongoing coverage of the Karen Reed trial in the Readathon.
That's right.
If you come to us at the Bricker scale level, you'll get Laura Bricker's exclusive podcast, Leave It to Bricker, in which she solves mysteries, or at least mysteries to her, in her quaint AF town of Exeter, New Hampshire. If you come in at the Let's Do What We Do level, you get all that, plus episodes of Crime Writers on early and ad-free. You still get the business section in it for some reason, because
People
we tried to
like
take it out, and they said they would pay less unless we kept it in, so I don't know.
People
you still
like
get
it.
They
People
like
this shitty part of the show.
Are you not entertained?
So entertained.
If you become a deep diver.
Look at Toby. He's so entertained.
Yeah, I'm personally just riveted.
Toby's deep divers get all of that, plus they get to partake in the recording of his deep dive book club. He recently did the book American Prison. Right now you can listen to his panel's take on American Fire. Next up, Toby will be doing American Sweepstakes, which is my book about the first lottery.
Yes, it was a bestseller.
It was a bestseller. It was a million seller, Laura.
Yeah.
I have 1 million in my cellar.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, that's a joke. All right. But bump.
I can confirm.
All that from Patreon. But another way you can support us is we have an Amazon storefront where you can see some of our favorite things. Rebecca, what are this week's Crime Writers on Amazon recommendations?
Well, Kevin, I'm on vacation this week.
Mm-hmm.
And have you been seeing what I've been doing with my hands and eyes as I have been having the Karen Reed trial on in the background or sitting on the deck? What have I been doing?
You've been doing a paint by numbers?
A very complicated paint by numbers that I
Okay.
purchased on Amazon.
Okay.
I recommend paint by numbers if you enjoy occasional crafts that you can put away and then pick up 6 months later.
Did you say occasional craps?
Crafts.
Oh, crafts. All right.
If you enjoy the occasional craft but are too impatient that you sometimes have to put it away and pick it up 6 months later, unlike a knitting project, you can do that with a paint by numbers. So I say unlike a knitting project because that's a me thing. You can't figure out where you left off. Paint by numbers. Numbers, paint. Easy. I love it.
Sounds very zen.
It is.
Toby, what are your listener-inspired Toby Ball's deep cut recommendations?
All right, I'm starting off with the Belanomi African Exfoliating Net Sponge. Authentic, ethically sourced from Nigeria. 45 inches long.
What?
That is long.
Big ass sponge.
Back scrubber for daily use. In parentheses, copper brown.
That could scrub Uranus. It's so long.
Oh, so long.
Yep.
Get between the
Looking for
folds.
You
Yes.
could reach the planet. I'm talking about the planet, Kevin.
Okay. You mean Uranus? All right.
The joke doesn't work if it's Uranus.
All right, where were we? YJ Premiums, 6-piece nurse pens for nurses. And then there's like a little vertical line. Cute, funny pharmacy drug nursing pens, gifts for nurse, medical assistant, pharmacist, school student, hospital, do.
Why do nurses need special pens that like the
Do
rest
they
of us?
need them? Or are they just getting them?
Doesn't every like antidepressant drug company like just give you free ones?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Even back in the day.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, my dad would come home with pens from whatever...
Novo Nordisk.
Whatever the up-and-coming medicine from the 1970s was.
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like, here you go.
Yeah, it's Valium.
EpiPen pen.
Yes. Well, maybe that's it. This is a nurse's pen that doesn't sell out.
Oh.
Well, it's cute and funny.
It's cute
It is
and
cute
funny.
and funny, yes.
All
And it's
right.
also appropriate for a pharmacist.
So if you want to see all of those things, you just shop us first when you go to Amazon. You go to amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On. Those are words you can remember, right? We earn commissions on qualified purchases.
All right, Kevin, before we end our business section,
Yes.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Sarah Rogers Smith and Nora Pagel. Bless you.
Nora and Sarah, I can't thank you enough for your patronage of our Patreon. You see what I did there?
Yes. They've been around for years and years, so really, thank you to the two of you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And thank you for everyone who supports us there. We're able to provide the show for free for everyone each and every week. But because of you, we can actually afford to make it. So thank you so much. You are supporting our work when you support Patreon. Thank you so much. Kevin, Does thus end our business section?
Thus ends the business section.
As a contractor, I don't pay for materials I don't use. So why would I pay for stuff I don't need in my mobile plan? That's why the new MyBiz plan from Verizon Business is so perfect. Now I can choose exactly what I want, and I only pay for what I need.
Right now, with MyBiz plan, get our best price, as low as $25 a line. Visit verizon.com/business to get started today. Price per month with 5+ lines. Includes autopay and paper-free billing and special intro offer discounts. Taxes, fees, economic adjustment charge, and terms apply. Offers end June 10th, 2025.
This is Comedy Bang Bang, the podcast, the promo. And in 30 seconds, I'm going to tell you why you should check out the show. I, the host Scott Aukerman, have a lighthearted conversation with famous celebrities like John Hamm, Allison Williams, Phoebe Bridgers, Jason Alexander, Natasha Lyonne, Bob Odenkirk, just to name a few. Things go a little off the rails when different eccentric characters and oddballs drop by to be interviewed as well. Each week is a blend of conversations and character work from your favorite comedians, as well as some new hilarious voices. Comedy Bang Bang, the podcast. Listen every Monday wherever you get your podcasts.
Instacart is here to keep you on the couch this basketball season. With pre-game rituals and post-game interviews, it's hard to find time for everything else. Let Instacart handle your game day snacks or weekly restocks with delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Because it's bad luck to be hungry on game day. Download the Instacart app today and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees apply for 3 orders in 14 days. Excludes restaurants.
All right, I have a thought experiment proposition for you all.
Okay.
I believe that the Oprah Winfrey Show was worse for America than the Jerry Springer Show.
Why is that? Oh, you're going to say because of Dr. Phil?
Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, diet culture, the mainstreaming of anti-vax culture, and that part of wellness. There are so many things like manifesting, wishful thinking.
John of God.
Exactly. The cults.
The Secret.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with Oprah, the reason I think it's worse for America than the Jerry Springer Show is because people felt righteous and good watching Oprah while they were getting all of these terrible thoughts and terrible ideas and meeting all these terrible people. And people saw Jerry Springer as this raucous, jokey, circus, right? And
there was sugar in that cereal.
Exactly. They had, the box was bright. It had a toucan on it, right? And Oprah is like that Cracklin' Oat brand cereal that you think is healthy, but it's really just real bad for you cookies, right? It's like that. You feel like really righteous eating it because it's brown, comes in like a brown box.
You poop a lot. All right,
yeah,
but we've stretched the metaphor. Yeah.
I think it's worse for everyone, the Oprah Winfrey Show. And I appreciated the entire First Amendment framing of some of this conversation, as in when Jerry was being challenged by the Chicago City Council. How dare you, sir? How dare you? And he's like, is this really a good use of taxpayer dollars and your time challenging me on a TV show that I just happen to make here?
I love how the councilman said, this is going to improve your ratings. And I'm thinking, no, this is going to improve your ratings.
Exactly. Meanwhile, people in the city council's office are cheering every time Jerry Springer talks, just like it's the Jerry Springer Show.
I mean, what is the purpose of your show?
The purpose? I have said this so many times publicly. I think it's a silly, crazy, outrageous show. I think it's chewing gum. I think the world will be fine with it. The world will be fine without it.
So, Laura, whether or not you think I'm right or wrong, what do you think the impact potentially of Jerry Springer's show had on our nation?
Well, I agree with you on the Oprah.
Thank you.
But I also will say, as I was listening to this, I was thinking about the type of behavior that was being encouraged on the Jerry Springer Show. And I'm thinking about little kids coming home after school and watching the Jerry Springer, young people watching. And I'm thinking of just the bad behavior that was cheered. And then I look at where we are now in our culture, where people that grew up watching that have adopted a leader who talks to people like that.
Well, there's a meanness to
There's a meanness to it. And it feels like it's kind of normalized. We joke about it. I joke about it. But at the same time, it kind of normalized interacting with people like that and seeing these fights that got sort of amped up and set up. And then think about, you see these kind of fights still in the real world too. And I don't know if we saw them as frequently before, but I feel like it really changed the culture of how we interact with each other in a way that's not very nice.
I think there's a case to be made, though, that reality TV did something very similar. If it weren't Jerry Springer, it would have been somebody else or something else. But Jerry Springer had quite the argument for justifying the violence on his show when he was at that city council conversation, didn't he, Toby?
He made the somewhat dubious claim that basically, like, I actually think we handle this more responsibly than the network news does, because we're always saying violence isn't the answer and blah, 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 which...
That's the final thought, right?
Yeah. So whatever. Like, there's no way you're trying to show that as being not the way to handle it when you're just doing it day after day after day after day. And then when you finally put the kibosh on it and your ratings drop, you're like, well, let's amp up the fights again. Like, that clearly the takeaway message, if there is a takeaway message, which I don't think there probably is to all this, is not we shouldn't resolve our problems through physical violence. I don't know if anybody watched Jerry Springer for like tips on how to live. But I do think with Oprah, it was a lot like she's helping me make choices and guiding me towards resources or philosophies or whatever, which can help me in my life. Yeah. Whereas Jerry Springer's like, look how fucked up these people are. Yeah. So it just feels like the takeaways are so different, in that if anybody's like honestly internalizing what they're watching on Springer as like sort of a guiding light for how they want to pursue like their life, like that's pathological. Whereas you can, I think you can watch Oprah and just kind of, if you just buy into all that stuff, you turn into Marianne Williamson.
Yeah. Or Gwyneth Paltrow. Or anybody who loves Dr. Phil. So, Kevin, we have to talk about it.
Oh, God, no.
The horse episode. Thoughts?
I can't think of a better way of telling this story than from the view of the audience member who thought they were coming to see cheating spouses slap each other.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep my tone, but me and my aunt said, what the F? We came all the way out here for this? What the hell going on with this?
The initial reveal got a loud response from the audience. But then the man and the horse began to kiss.
They talk about this episode quite a bit in the Netflix series, but they tell it from the point of view of one or two of the producers that set it up, and, you know, how the phone call came together and they put it, you know, whatever. They do some of that here too. But yeah,
stable down the street.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy, but I certainly like the. That's actually pretty indicative, I think, of a Leon Neyfakh podcast, is that he has such luck and magic finding a relevant perspective on the periphery of the topic. So instead of just going to the producers and just saying, tell me more about where you got the horse, to find somebody in the audience to begin with, and then to have them tell their story and how shocked they were, gave us permission to be shocked and titillated a bit as well. So I thought,
and feel better about our own lives.
And feel better about our own lives. And yeah, that was weird as hell. And it's not just because, like, out of 4,000 shows, it's the craziest. But to me, it's a great vignette. It doesn't, I mean, you know, and it's the title of that episode, Horse and Pony Show, or Pony and Horse and Dog Show, Dog and Pony Show, right? And yeah, I mean, Laura wants to know more about the finger, but...
Oh, God, no, I don't. No.
You don't? Okay.
No. I think that was the part where then the lady was, as she was describing what happened, and then they're like, she's recounting what he said. He's like, wow, I just like... And I was like, well, but I liked...
She pushed her tail aside, and I got curious, so
I was like, oh, my God. But then when she talked about how, like, the man and Lisa was, like, making out with the horse on the show...
10 times.
Yeah,
I've seen that with a carrot. That's not making out. That's like put a little peanut butter on your cheek and letting your dog come over and lick it.
It's not. He fucked his horse, Kevin.
I know, but he also fucked his horse. Yeah.
But that it was legal. It was legal. And then the guy with the dog, I was like, I just can't.
Yeah, I will say, the horse show aside, I did like how Leon Neyfakh made a point to point out how progressive and inclusive Jerry Springer could be. Like, when he did shows about transgender people, they may have come on and there was a show about, you know, something, but he made a point, as with the adult babies, to be like, people are into what they're into. They are who they are. You can't exclude people in your community and blah, 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 blah. And then you have the horse guy and you're like,
what was the final thought for that show?
I don't know what the final thought was. It certainly shouldn't have been you can fuck your horse.
Well, different strokes for different folks.
Oh, goodness. Goodness gracious, Kevin.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. But I think final thoughts, I think is a very apt title for this, Toby, because it doesn't just refer to his signature closing segment. It's probably the only time we get the real Jerry Springer at all, right? The rest of the time, he's trying to be above everything happening around him, and it doesn't matter how awful it is. He just kind of walks around, and he doesn't stand up for anything. He just lets it happen, and then he sort of reveals a bit of himself there. Now, he started, recycling all the things, but as far as, a mystery, do you think that, that's the clue to who the real Jerry Springer is?
In some ways I agree with that. I can't remember if he's a reverend or a preacher or whatever who was leading the fight in Chicago, I guess, against Jerry Springer. And somebody said, what do you think about this idea that, your job isn't you and that you can separate those two things? And he was like, well, that's kind of bullshit. I kind of agree with that. I'm very sympathetic to Jerry Springer in some ways, and I can get that doing the final thought and revealing who he wants people to think is the real him. But again, for years and years and years and years, he was part of this freaking clown show. And even if he was being relatively tolerant in the final thoughts, is that when he was talking about transgender people, he wasn't talking about the quote unquote sort of average transgender person living their lives just doing their thing. I'm sure there was some outrageous stuff going on in the actual show, because that's the way it was for everything. And then so coming on afterwards and having this sort of tolerant view about things, that's fine. But what you've shown beforehand is sort of this cartoonish view of all these things. And I think it comes through with the thing where they talk to that guy who's I think he was a musician from Atlanta, and he signed up to be the guy who goes to the strip clubs too much. He was a tattoo artist. So he was at strip clubs a lot, but he didn't actually have a girlfriend. It was just a buddy of his. And so again, it's manufacturing this thing where the amps are turned to 11 on something that may actually be a problem, somebody who's got sex addiction or whatever, and they're going to strip clubs and spending all this money and not being around their wife. That is probably an actual issue for some small group of people somewhere, but the way that it's actually dealt with in this situation where you have people for whom it absolutely is not the case, and then have it come to fisticuffs between some stripper who's dressed as a stripper on stage and his friend who's pretending to be his wife. At the end of the day, and he sort of does this plausible, well, if anybody was ever faking it, then I would kick him off, and the producer or something. Dude, there's no way you think that all these people are real. You cannot be that self-deluded.
It was a pretty good gig. The way they take you in on the first class and the limo and the prime rib 3 times a day. I was like, I wish I could go on the Jerry Springer show.
And then you sign the papers and everything switches.
Everything switches, and then you don't get anything good.
Yeah, and next thing you know, you're married to a goat.
Oh, God, married to a goat.
Or a ghost.
You can do yoga.
Yeah, you can do ghost yoga.
Lights, camera, innovation. Walt Disney Studios chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform the movie-making process. Together, we kept a remote production hub in Hawaii and sync with a team in California to bring Lilo and Stitch to theaters this summer. This is picture-perfect collaboration. This is Walt Disney Studios with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
This is Comedy Bang Bang, the podcast, the promo. And in 30 seconds, I'm going to tell you why you should check out the show. I, the host Scott Aukerman, have a lighthearted conversation with famous celebrities like John Hamm, Allison Williams, Phoebe Bridgers, Jason Alexander, Natasha Lyonne, Bob Odenkirk, just to name a few. Things go a little off the rails when different eccentric characters and oddballs drop by to be interviewed as well. Each week is a blend of conversations and character work from your favorite comedians, as well as with some new hilarious voices. Comedy Bang Bang, the podcast. Listen every Monday wherever you get your podcasts.
This summer, Instacart is bringing back your favorites from 1999 with prices from 1999. That means 90s prices on juice pouches that ought to be respected, 90s prices on boxed mac and cheese, and 90s prices on ham, cheese, and cracker lunches. Enjoy all those throwbacks and more at throwback prices, only through Instacart. $4.72 maximum discount per $10 of eligible items. Limit 3 offers per order. Expires September 5th while supplies last. Discount based on CPI comparison.
All right, let's let our listeners know, should they check out the podcast Final Thoughts? Jerry Springer from our friend and regular reviewee on this show, Leon Neyfakh. It's an Audible original show. Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for Final Thoughts?
Yeah, this is a thumbs up. You know, this was something that was interesting because as somebody who kind of grew up in that generation where everybody was talking about the Jerry Springer show and kind of making it into a joke, I appreciated the way that there was like a careful kind of examination and very thoughtful look at Jerry Springer's whole life, not just the life that we would see on this show, but also then kind of an examination of like, did he sort of sell out because of his ambition? Who was he really? And then also you get to hear about some of the more wacky shows that happened, which honestly, you can't help but listen to those stories. I appreciated, you know, some of the folks that went on as guests telling us what actually happened behind the scenes. And it was kind of sad in a way as well when you hear about sort of the end of the era of Jerry Springer and how what happened with him at the end of his career before his death is kind of like, well, there was a lot more to this guy than just the guy on the show with people fighting and beating each other over the head. And I thought it was really interesting. So thumbs up.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer?
Yeah, so, you know, Leon Neyfakh is one of a very small handful of people who I just like. Every podcast I do, I really like. I think he's remarkably consistent. For every single one of them, it's like good sourcing, good writing, pacing's great. It has a certain feel that it's like, oh yeah, this is a Leon Neyfakh podcast. So all these things being said, like a lot of it's really the content, I think, that really distinguishes one series from the next. He's also got a talent for kind of finding these stories that, while not being directly about things, kind of illuminate things that are going on. And I think he does make the tie between Springer and not just, you know, the current president, but also, I guess, sort of the kind of feel that's around him, sort of a little bit coarser, a lot more kind of antics and sort of high emotional pitch and things like that. So anyway, it was really interesting. There's a lot of interesting details. I found the whole, you know, again, his sort of story arc to be fascinating. So again, a big thumbs up from me.
Kevin Flynn.
I'm a thumbs up. Jerry Springer isn't an obvious choice for an examination, a nuanced, thoughtful examination of their life. His name is synonymous with coarse behavior, a degradation of artistic quality, and all sorts of bad things. But divining his true beliefs is kind of difficult to do because he would often very softly distance himself from what his show was. And so to find out what that is, there is, you know, something worth exploring. Why did this man live in a gilded cage with the door wide open? That's an interesting topic to look at. And I think it's one that would easily have been overlooked. A podcast like this could just focus on the worst, craziest shows that Jerry Springer ever did and what happened there, but it went so much more beyond that. And I think the overall strength of this podcast, like so many with Leon Neyfakh, is just the quality writing. It's not flashy, but it's composed so well. It does not call to itself. There was a point where I stopped sort of listening to the story and just listening to the wordsmithing to get an understanding of it. It's so strong. It's effortless. It's why it can move just about any story along. And that's part of the reason why I went along with this deep dive into the life and times of Jerry Springer and bought into the idea that this man was more than just the adjective attached to his art, that he was way more complicated, and Leon Neyfakh, like he's done with Michael Jackson and Bernie Getz and other folks, really brought that home and made it enjoyable for me as a listener. So big thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm a big thumbs up too. Leon, I don't think you've ever made a podcast that I truly didn't like, but there's a sensibility about Leon Neyfakh's work that I've really come to appreciate, especially through this season, this series and the vaping series, the sort of lack of cultural snobbery that, I mean, let me just put it this way. I have heard so many stories done by people who are good journalists, good podcasters. An example I'll use is a story I heard on This American Life 10 million years ago about professional wrestling. And there's always this need to sort of be like, listen, I know that you probably don't watch this or like it, but let me tell you why a lot of people do. Like, Leon doesn't do that shit. He's like, people vape, people like trashy TV. We're not judging anybody. I mean, it's popular because millions of people liked it. Let's not make it like there's something wrong with liking things that are made for our enjoyment. But let's just talk about what's the underpinnings of it, the stuff behind it, the potential consequences of it. And I love it that he chooses topics like this. And Leon, I'm just going to ask you a question, you to me, because I know you listen to the show and we review your stuff. Please do a podcast about Oprah Winfrey and how corrosive she is for America. So much worse than Jerry Springer. I know it's scary because I know she's alive and I know that she's got a lot of lawyers and she's very rich. That would be an incredible show and I would listen to the hell out of it. So anyway, that's it for me. Huge thumbs up for Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer. Thanks for making it, Leon. That's going to do it for us. But before we go, Laura Bricker, do we have a cat of the week this week?
We do. Hold on just a minute. I'm going to pull it up.
Did you not know this question was coming?
I did, but I was trying not to look at my phone while people were doing their reviews.
We appreciate that.
That's good.
Nice job, Laura.
I was trying to be like respectful. So
proud of you.
I was
Toby who leaned all the way back.
I constantly forget about it, and about halfway through, I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm supposed to be paying attention.
Oh, fuck, I'm going to be on TikTok looking super disengaged.
Yeah, well, that's my brand at this point, I think.
Well, you can be engaged now because we have two potential contenders this week. One I was going to do, and then I felt actually bad for the cat. I don't know if you guys saw this story about the prison guards who caught a drug smuggling cat in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And I was like, that poor freaking cat. So I'm not going to put that as, that's more of a crime of the week.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jamie Sikora in our official Crime Writers on Facebook discussion group was like, is it okay if I share a picture of my German Shepherd mix named Chloe?
Yes.
And just posted a picture of this very cute little dog. And everyone's like, of course it is. It should be cat of the week. Share more pictures. And so this very cute little dog, Chloe. I'm working on being less afraid of dogs. I think I would probably pet this dog, Jamie, if I was around. And it's hanging outside. It's like, let me inside. So I liked Chloe, the German Shepherd.
Is that your second Chloe in a couple of weeks?
It is.
It might have been, yeah. It's a popular name. It's like when everybody was naming their children like Caden. Chloe is apparently the new dog name.
Everybody was naming their children Caden?
There was so many Cadens when Will was in elementary school. It was a very popular name. Caden, Tucker. Yeah, they were all very popular.
Yeah.
I did a doubleheader where all the catchers' names were Jackson.
Yeah, it's like a total, like, it's a renaissance of these like hyper masculine names like Colton and like Shooter, Trig.
Shooter.
Grenade.
Skip.
Hunter.
Flash.
When I was playing rugby in college, of the 15 guys, there's 15 guys on a rugby team on the field at once. 3 of them were named Toby.
Wow.
Super confusing to all of us.
Toby, I'm open.
Yeah, exactly.
Our daughter is a teacher, and sometimes will just read us the absentee list for the day, and it's our job to guess how the name is spelled.
Yeah.
A lot of Jacksons out there in the world. All right, Kevin.
My favorite was Jathan.
And Jackson.
Jackson with 2 X's, yeah.
All right, Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you and pitch any kind of animal, real, imaginary, or in pop culture, to be cat of the week, how can they find you online?
I will take all of those suggestions. I'm at Laura Bricker on Instagram and Blue Sky.
What about you, Toby? How can you be found?
At Toby Ball NH on the Blue Sky.
And listen to Ancient Failians, right, Toby?
Listen to Ancient Failians.
Yeah.
Why not?
What about you, Kevin? How can you be found?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
You can find me on the Readathon, because that's all I do these days. It's just Readathon, Readathon, Readathon. But if you want to find me on social media, I'm at all the places at Reb Lavoie. But mostly I encourage you to join our incredible community in our official Crime Writers on Facebook discussion group. Get episodes early and ad-free and all the other stuff we make at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons, and our editor is the really wonderful, very tall, very attractive Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin Flynn. This show was recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we never pay for sex workers by check. We use Venmo, just like Matt Gaetz did.
Absolutely.
And Apple Pay.
Way more convenient. You have to use your face for Apple Pay, and then you're going to deny it. Okay.
On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
He made the somewhat dubious claim that, and I have to say this, not ever having watched the Jerry Springer show.
Surprise.
Hey, pause. Are you kidding? Like, I don't understand how you haven't seen a movie.
I've seen clips.
I don't understand how you have never seen a thing that was literally on every single day for 10 million years. Never?
What time was it on? Was it on like 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something?
Yeah. When people worked?
Yeah, I worked, and even if I was home, like, why would I want to watch that? Anyway, I mean, I've seen clips.
4,000 episodes. I don't think I've watched a whole one myself, but I'm absolutely familiar with it.
I'm not ignorant about like what it looks like and stuff, but I haven't actually sat down and watched a show. But anyway,
Partners in Crime Media.
This is Comedy Bang Bang, the podcast, the promo. And in 30 seconds, I'm going to tell you why you should check out the show. I, the host Scott Aukerman, have a lighthearted conversation with famous celebrities like John Hamm, Allison Williams, Phoebe Bridgers, Jason Alexander, Natasha Lyonne, Bob Odenkirk, just to name a few. Things go a little off the rails when different eccentric characters and oddballs drop by to be interviewed as well. Each week is a blend of conversations and character work from your favorite comedians as well as some new hilarious voices. Comedy Bang Bang, the podcast. Listen every Monday wherever you get your podcasts.